Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good following morning. This is AMA number 59. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. AMA number 59 with special guest today is a fantastic guy, the Consul General here, American Consul General in Krakow, Dr. Patrick Slowinski, and we're going to talk to him in just a few minutes. We're really excited that he's on. He's been here for a couple of years, and to be honest, I haven't seen him in 14 months, obviously, so it's be good to catch up with him. Of course, we're in touch, but we saw each other a lot more before the world shut down. It's obvious to say, but anyway, good to have him on the show. We have a great partnership with the consulate for years and years, and they always send absolutely the best and the brightest come to Krakow, and Patrick is absolutely on among them. Not public again. Let us see. Why is that happening again? Edit audience. Something very strange with Facebook and Zoom. There we go. Now it is. So there we go. Now we can share it. Issue Zoom is always changing the Zoom Facebook interface a little bit wonky, and they changed a totally different interface. And when I put public, it shows friends only, but I think now it should be okay. Sebastian will let me know. Good morning, Jeffrey Rolat from Poolside in Boca. Pizza coming at noon. Yeah, I think Jeffrey, I turned Jeffrey onto the One Bite Pizza Reviews, Dave Portnoy, which he has a great tagline, one bite, everyone knows the rules. So first of all, I think Jeffrey would appreciate Dave Portnoy. By the way, very good pizza reviews. If you don't know it, as a pizza aficionado, the One Bite Pizza Reviews, a part of Barstool Sports. So happy to hear that you're poolside and pizza coming, Jeffrey, very nice. Hello, Saul, first time at Friday night services tonight, no more Zoom. Wow, you and mom are happy campers. Well, love to your mom, Saul, and happy that you guys are back in person. That's happening this week. Kasha Leonardi, hello. Hello, Kasha Leonardi. Very good to see you, Kasha. Long time no speak. Sita, we can't watch you. My dad, Jerry, is having eye surgery. Yes, I heard. My dad having cataract surgery. Good luck with that, Sita, and I'm sure he'll watch it watch it soon. Actually, my sister spoke to me last night and asked if I could change the time because of my dad's surgery. Not working again, I understand, but people are seeing me. Let me edit post again. Oh, no, sorry about that. Edit audience, technical difficulties. It says to me public, Seb. So not sure about what's going on there, but I will just continue. Had an interesting story this week that happened to us, which is in Poland. You have something called działki, a działka. Działka is like a tract of land, a little piece of land that people have. Now it can be a big piece of land, a little piece of land, usually because people during communism were all living in these buildings, blocks in Polish, that they were given very often these plots of land outside the city that they could raise their own vegetables and things like that. But anyway, we were Kasha and I about a week ago were walking down the street in the center of town near a market, and I saw something on somebody had put an advertisement up where you pull off those little pieces of paper with a phone number, and it said, "Oh, I have like one of these plots of land that I want you can have it for free," something like that. And I was like, "Oh, that's interesting. Sounds good." So Kasha called, and it was an older woman who generally explained, but not so much, that she has this land and it's too big for her to take care of and all of this, yada, yada, yada. So we figured, we're essentially like most people, stuck inside all the time, stuck in the city, bored out of our minds. So we took a drive out there. It was about 25 minutes outside of Krakow, so pretty convenient, pretty close. And we get out there and we finally find it. And it's, first of all, the street that it's on is Miodowa, which was very exciting for us because Miodowa is the street that the Jcc is on, which means honey street. Miód is honey in Polish. Anyway, so we meet this woman and she had this house, 2 houses and this property, and she sold the house and sold the other house, and she lives in the city, but she kind of kept this land and it's too big for her, and she wants to somebody else to like use half of it essentially, and all we have to do is mow the lawn once or twice a year. So we're like, all right, good deal. So we are the proud, I will say, non-owners, but have the rights now to use this big piece of land that Kasha's already planning what she's going to grow there, and the woman is really sweet and this kind of very feisty, independent older woman who's like, oh, I do this, does everything herself. Her kids are far away, and I don't think help her out too much. But pretty cool that we have this this thing. Kasha will now be plotting, farming on our little plot of land. That's not exactly ours, but who knows? Maybe we'll acquire it from her. Jeffrey Rolat, I heard the chief rabbi got married this week. Yes, the chief rabbi Shudrick did get married this week. Big news for him, and we wish Chief Rabbi Shudrick and his lovely bride Magda the best, absolutely all the best from us here in Poland, and there are many friends all over the world. So that's very exciting for us. Of course, big news. I have some questions that came in for me. One, how was the JCC birthday celebrated? If you remember, we had the birthday last week. Very quiet celebration. We went to the Botanical Gardens. I think that was the week before. And then the Friday kids had a little celebration. But next year, we're going to do the big bar and bat mitzvah for the 13. So if you don't, fear not that you missed out on the JCC's birthday. We will do it a big one next week. Are there plans to bring back in-person programming to the JCC now that people are getting vaccinated? Yes, hopefully in May, the middle of May, we want to do a big party around Shavuot. When we will invite the seniors back. They're mostly vaccinated, and have an outdoor party. We thought have a little concert for them, give them some cheesecake, some ice cream for Shavuot. So that's the plan. Talk about my nephew's bar mitzvah. Yeah, so my nephew Elijah, who I call Muhammad, because if his name is Elijah, of course, I think only of Elijah Muhammad. I suppose I should think of the prophet Elijah, but I think of Elijah Muhammad. Anyway, my nephew Elijah is having a bar mitzvah. He's the same age as the JCC, so I always remember that. And hopefully we will go to the bar mitzvah in New York in a few weeks. Still a little bit up in the air, but we're working on that. And his bar mitzvah project is actually Ride for the Living. So he and I are going to do a talk for his synagogue tonight. He goes to Westchester Reform Temple in Larchmont. No, Larchmont Reform Temple. Sorry, I always get that wrong. There's also Westchester Reform. He goes to synagogue and temple in Larchmont. And tonight at 1:30 this morning, which will be 7:30 my time, we are doing a presentation together. So me and my nephew Muhammad will talk Ride for the Living Global Challenge, get people to sign up, and hopefully also give him a lot of money, which won't go to him. It will go to us. We are more deserving, JCC Krakow, more deserving of everyone's dollars than my nephew Elijah, although he would probably say he's more deserving. So will there be an in-person ride this year? There will be some type of in-person ride this year. We're not sure. A few of us here in Krakow will probably ride. If anybody wants to come over and do the in-person this year, we will do it. Jeffrey Rolat saying, share the link. That's right, Jeffrey Rolat. There we go. Jeffrey gearing up for his own Ride for the Living. We know. Big fan of the ride, Jeffrey Rolat. Sebastian will share the link. So hopefully there'll be some type of in-person ride. We're not sure exactly what that'll be. And we're working on that. We're working on Holocaust Survivor Day, continues to grow, and we're very excited about Survivor Day. In terms of maybe just quickly go through the news in Poland this week. Continue to roll back Corona regulations. So Poland continues to open it up, which is a good thing. Poland asked the Czech government to prevent abortion tourism, which is not a good thing anyway, because we have no borders here in the EU, and abortion is so highly regulated in Poland, in other words, illegal in Poland, then a lot of people go to Czech and Germany to get abortions if they need them. And Poland has asked the Czech government to prevent that, which I don't know how they would even do that from a legal point of view, and also as many of us who believe that abortion should remain legal and easily accessible for women, as they want it. We don't like that happened. So that's news. A bunch of other news that I will leave for now, but that was just one of the things. So with no further ado, I am going to bring on my guest today. Really honored to have Dr. Patrick Slowinski. We will say Slowinski. I'm interested in America. I think that they would pronounce it a little bit different. Patrick, this is his second tour in Poland. He's the Consul General. He was the Vice Consul at the US Embassy before. He served in Poland, Ukraine, Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, and Russia. Going to ask him about that. That's very exciting. He's an expert on energy policy, and he was a senior energy diplomacy officer in the Bureau of Energy Resources. He's represented the U.S. Trade interests as the director for Central and South Asia at the Office of the U.S. Trade Representative. He's won a bunch of State Department awards. He's an absolute all-star, and he's from one of my favorite cities in the U.S., underrated city, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Patrick has a doctorate in education from Brigham Young and a postdoctoral degree from Kansas State. And he's doing a master's in, completing his master's in industrial organizational psychology from the Harvard Extension School in the fall this 2021. He speaks a bunch of languages: French, Polish, Russian, Ukrainian, and luckily for us today, excellent English. So Patrick, good to see you. Thank you for being with us. That's quite a resume, Patrick.
Hey, Jonathan, thank you. I loved hearing the intro and you talking to the people that tune into you, and to feel that kind of love that you guys have support. I was also surprised by the news of Rebbe Shudrick getting married. I did not know that. So
huge news.
Mazel tov to him. That's absolutely fantastic. That's great news.
Absolutely. So I mentioned something which is just starting with, which I sort of like to try to go a little bit chronologically, that you are from the wonderful city of Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Right.
Very, very strong Polish community in Milwaukee.
That's right. And in fact, when I was growing up there, I didn't know anyone who wasn't Polish. I did meet a few Jewish people that would come and buy things from my grandfather's bakery. And then some Germans and a few, but everybody I knew was Polish at the time. But things have changed a lot. The city's really changed dynamically in many ways in construction and where people have all moved around. A lot of people went to the suburbs, but still there's quite a good Polish heart in Milwaukee. And I had a great childhood there growing up.
It's a great place. I was supposed to be there last year. There was a conference, and then what happened. So I hope to get back. Tell me, you mentioned your grandfather's bakery. So can you talk a little bit about people who might, of course, we would say Slowinski. I don't know, in America, what did they call it growing up? Well, you were around Poles growing up, so I guess people could pronounce it.
Slowinski. It was Slowinski with the O.
How would people say it that don't? Would they call you Slowinski?
Slowinski, right? And during that whole Monica Lewinsky thing, everyone thought I was related to Monica.
Yeah. No. Once you know how things are pronounced, once you understand Polish pronunciation, when you hear somebody mispronounce it or do the American pronunciation, I find it personally, to hear Slowinski to me is painful to hear.
It is what it is. I try to get people to, like you, to try to learn a little bit of Polish as much as I can. If I can get my children to speak Polish, I'd be a happy man.
So growing up, Polish from home.
I do, and also from the university. I also studied in Poland when I was a college student. I studied in Sopot and Gdańsk. A lot of my relatives are still in Poland, and some are scattered in diaspora cities in Chicago, Milwaukee, Greenpoint. Few relatives still there. Buffalo. Greenpoint was a large Polish city. Now it's not so much.
Less and less. It's become a little more. I would always go, even when I moved to Poland 19 years ago, and I remember if I would have to ship stuff to Poland or just walk around and sort of absorb, I was so excited to see a Polish neighborhood that I didn't appreciate growing up in New York so much. I didn't really have any connection to Poland. My family's actually not Polish, we're one of the 25% of American Jews that don't trace their heritage to here. But Greenpoint now, it's become, I would say it used to be whatever it was, 75% Polish even 20 years ago, or maybe 50%, and now it's maybe 20% Polish. I feel it's a lot more kind of hipstery, but I feel like Queens, Maspeth, there are some places in Queens that have sort of kind of become more Polish as Greenpoint has become more hipstery.
Right, and then also you have to, you know, with Polish diaspora, it's very difficult, right? Because you have 10 million diaspora, but what generation are they? A lot of the immigration in the last 10 years has been to Europe from Poland, not to the United States as much. And so that changed the dynamic of Polish immigration. So when you say that people say there are 10 million Polish people in the United States, it's probably, I'm second generation, so, you know, it depends on how you count it, right?
And also,
But however,
Colonia.
that's right. There's a huge
with
love.
The Jews.
That's
We
right.
always, from a Jewish point of view, and I always, you know, discuss this once in a while with things, that it's like very often Polonia isn't counted, right? Jews aren't counted, although percentage-wise, the cities, to me, we talk about Chicago and stuff, but like Tel Aviv or something would be, or these cities around Israel would be the most Polish places, really.
Yeah, exactly. And so I'm just really thrilled to be back in Poland. As you mentioned in my bio there, I started off my career as a diplomat almost 18 years ago in Warsaw. At that time, of course, we still had visas, and I was doing about 100 a day.
Wow.
Then I would run over to the American Citizen Services because, frankly, I could speak Polish, and not all my colleagues could. And so I went and helped out there, and I just had the best tour in Warsaw, my first assignment. Absolutely fantastic. My brother came, found a Polish girl, sort of like you, got married.
As one does.
I was one of his witnesses, at his marriage. And, you know, I say, no matter what, when you guys look at your marriage certificate, there's your brother's signature on the back. So I'm in your life no matter what. So great memories from that first tour. Then I did quite a few different things in between. I became more of a Russian specialist for a while.
So maybe I'll just can I just back you up a second, because I want to still, I'm sorry, I want to talk about after Poland and what you've done in different places, different tours, but I wanted to still just focus a little bit about on growing up in Milwaukee. So your parents, where were your parents? Your parents born in the US or grandparents?
Yeah, they're both from Milwaukee. They met, got married. My dad, this is a funny story,
but both parents from Polish on both.
Actually, German on my mother's side, very German.
Ah.
Yeah. So her name was Neuleib. Liliana Neuleib was her maiden name, so very German. But Milwaukee was a place where a lot of Polish and a lot of German immigrants.
Of course.
And so they both met in a meat packing and a meat company where my dad made sausage and my mom did more of the packaging thing, and that's how they met. And then they both play the accordion. This is, everyone thinks, can you think, how many stereotypes can you think of, right?
Like the most Milwaukee thing. I feel like it's like Laverne and Shirley I'm watching.
So every Saturday we had everybody over, my mom and dad, and everyone would play accordion music all day long. And that was a happy childhood.
Do you play?
No, I never could. I never had the patience for it. So I wanted to just go out and play. I didn't really want to. I love listening to it. I still listen to, you know, there's a guy out in Punxsutawney, PA. His name is Mike Jccc. He's got one of the longest running polka radio shows in the country out there. So you should give him a listen. He goes like 4 hours every Saturday and Sunday.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Punxsutawney, famous for Punxsutawney Phil.
That's right. But also a strong Polish community. And a strong Polish community there.
Ah.
So yeah. Poland, growing up in Milwaukee was a great experience. You know, when my mom and dad met, her family lived either in Germany or they were in Minnesota. So my family experience most of the time was with my father's side of the family. Very dominant. You know, my grandfather was very, you know, the kind of head of our family. So he kind of dictated a lot of the stuff that we did in a very good, positive way. And so that Polish identity has always been with me since I was a little kid.
And did you visit Poland as a kid?
Not as a kid because of the whole communist thing, but later on, right when Poland in the early 90s, when Poland was moving completely into democracy and things were changing, I was there studying, and I was living with my aunt up in Sopot, and I was a part of that whole watching everything change. It was quite, and then just coming back even 5 years after that, in 95, to see the changes from 90 to 95 were just amazing.
What was your decision? How did you decide on the foreign service?
You know, this is a great story. So at the university where I was working and teaching, I had to see students and clients, and my students would come in and ask the big question, you know, the three big questions is where do we come from, why are we here, and where are we going after this life, right? And we kind of focused on why are we here. And we would always talk about jobs and careers and what they wanted to accomplish in their life. And invariably, many of them would stop talking about, I want to work for the government overseas. And then we'd get to the Foreign Service. And so because they were all taking these tests, I decided I would take the test too, just to see what it's like. And then I could tell the students what it's like, and I actually passed.
It's a tough,
So
very tough test.
it's a tough one. And you know, it takes you a couple of times to do it. Most people never just pass it on the first time. I didn't pass it on the first time. I passed there's the written part, and then there's the oral exam.
A lot of general knowledge.
Yeah, 12 disciplines, you know, from political science to economics to whatever, it's in there. The written part I was really good at. I'm a pretty good test taker. It's the second part where you have these oral interviews and a whole day of activities. That's a tough one. So I passed that on the second time, and I decided to do it, to go for it. And it was really that simple. My students were just shocked. They're like, wait, you're not going to help us anymore? You're just going to go run off and join the State Department? But, you know, I have 4 kids and 2 grandchildren. And my kids have been all around the world because of this career. And they're not always grateful for it because they miss being home in the States. I think in a few years, they're going to come back and say, Tata, that was a good choice. We got to see a lot. So I'm hopeful.
Yeah, we often don't appreciate things in the moment, and later on we're very appreciative, certainly as children.
Yeah.
And what about, was Warsaw your first posting?
Warsaw was my first posting.
Wow. And I guess that was because you spoke the language, right? I can't imagine it was a coincidence.
It was, I was all prepared to go to West Africa. I'm a French speaker. I wasn't happy about the malaria shots for the kids, but I was ready to go to West Africa. And then they called me up and said, hey, do you happen to speak Polish? And I said, yes. And they're like, boy, do we have a job for you. So I went out to Poland. So that's how that happened.
And how, you know, maybe it's a sort of a trite question, but how has it changed since you were here? How much time was in between your postings? A while.
Right. You know, I would try to, because my brother's families and my brother's relatives are here. My brother-in-law, my cousins are here. I've made a lot of little trips back and forth throughout the years, but
so
I
wasn't a big shock to live here.
No, not at all. And Krakow I always made time for Krakow, right? Because even if my family members are up in the north in Sopot, or they were down in Warsaw, I always made time to take a train and come down to Krakow and spend a lot of time as a student in Oświęcim. That was something I feel very strongly. Like many of us Polish, we have Ashkenazi blood in my family, and my ex-wife's family is 50% Jewish, and so my daughters are here, and our big goal has been to try to take them to the Jccc when it reopens, and so I'm hoping that we can do that so they can learn more about their heritage.
Absolutely. That's yeah. No, it's always interesting to me how we often think Polish and Jewish so separate, but really, you know, very completely intertwined. I guess that's what 1,000 years of living together will do for you. It's almost hard for it not to have happened somewhere.
You know, what's interesting is we had stories in our family that we had Jewish blood until Ancestry.com and 123 and all that, before you could actually prove it, right? It was just always, I wonder, because so many generations had passed. But it's a wonderful thing for my girls to think about. We look forward to the chance to take them to Israel when flights get back. That's a goal that they have. So anyway, lots of great things to do in Krakow, and
yeah. So maybe I'll talk a little bit about your previous, because you've been to some really amazing places that I don't think, you know, not every day do people get to hear about, or do I get to even know anything about. Turkmenistan, for example. I mean, Afghanistan's its own craziness. But what about some of your previous postings in terms of interesting things that jump out at you? What, you know, what's Turkmenistan like?
Wow, you know, I often ask my kids, what was your favorite place? Where was one of your favorite places to live? Invariably, a couple of them will always say Turkmenistan. Wow. And it wasn't because of the conditions per se, but it was because of the people that were there. The Turkmen people are some of the most wonderful, hospitable people that you've ever met. Generous. When they don't have a lot to be generous, they're still generous, and just wonderful, great people. The government is a different story. It's tough to live in Turkmenistan, and I think as a diplomat, I'll leave it there. But it has its challenges. And living there as a diplomat, you're always aware that someone is making sure you're okay and you're doing what you're supposed to be doing.
And I don't think there's too many. Are there many Americans? You're dealing with many Americans there? Not really. I guess
Not really.
Oil and natural gas people there.
Exactly, oil and natural gas, and it hasn't been the best economic situation for them with gas over the last year since I've been there. So I left, I believe, in 2012. So yeah, I didn't. It hasn't really improved that much. It's a small country. I mean, it's less than 4 million people. Small in terms of people, fairly big in geographic size. But again, vast desert. But then scattered around this place, one of the best things I did was I ended up studying Turkmen and learned enough to get in trouble. And it's a Turkic language, and I didn't have that as a basis, so I was pretty much learning from zero. And you know how they put the verbs at the very end, and similar to Hebrew, I think. They put the verbs at the end, and the syntax is different, but and they lisp Z's and S's, so it's very it's very cool language, great people, but tough. I would say it's a tough place to live, tough neighborhood. You mentioned Afghanistan, so after I left Turkmenistan, I went right into Afghanistan. And that was a tremendous, again, wonderful, wonderful people, difficult place to live.
Turkmenistan to Afghanistan.
Yeah, I did. I'm a glutton for punishment.
You got in trouble somewhere in the State Department, and they were
no, not at all. At that time, we were really trying to help the Turkmen and the Afghans and the Pakistanis and the Indians with the TAPI pipeline. We were behind efforts to try to help that come to fruition. It didn't come to fruition, but I was trying to actually go along the route of the pipeline. So I went to Turkmenistan to Afghanistan, and I didn't end up going to Pakistan or India yet, but that was kind of the plan. So that was when I was doing a lot on energy, and natural pipelines is really my specialty. In Ukraine, my second assignment after Poland was when President Putin decided to turn the gas off on the Ukrainians, and I was there for that. That probably took years off my life. Just the stress from all that, and reporting on that and telling Washington what was happening on the ground. I learned Ukrainian before I went to Kiev, and I was the only one and one of the few people in the American staff who actually spoke Ukrainian. Most people spoke Russian. And that was extremely helpful because of my Polish. I was able to pick up Ukrainian fairly quickly and learn Ukrainian and use it in Western Ukraine quite a bit. So that was a great experience as well.
I'm sure.
Afghanistan, it was tough. A couple of my colleagues died while I was there from IEDs, from terror attacks.
Yeah,
it's always hard when it's not just a natural way to pass this life. Is that someone actually kills somebody? It's really tough to be around that.
Yeah.
At the same time, we got to see a lot and make some changes. We were really helping the Afghan people with their energy projects, and it was a really good experience. And I've even thinking about going back one day. It's maybe time will tell, but wonderful people, absolutely.
Yeah, in the news a lot, of course, as the U.S. is pulling out after a very long time. That's such a fascinating history of the country. When you think about Afghanistan, we hear about it little. It was in the news, obviously, in the last 40 years or so because of the Russian, the Soviet invasion and that. But like certain countries, I feel like Central Asia, like Turkmenistan and Kyrgyzstan, and these places are completely unknown to us as Americans. I mean, we generally, as Americans, are not wildly up on the rest of the world, I think. But Asia, sort of Asia and Europe and, certain things, but Central Asia is just something that I think as a kid, I had no clue that these places, all of those giant sort of, the steppes and all that really existed. We just don't know much about, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, Kyrgyzstan.
Yeah, Kazakhstan.
Well, I guess Borat has done a lot for Kazakhstan. For they actually they actually have a sense of humor, and they used some of like Borat's.
Not in the beginning, they did. They were really mad in the beginning.
I'm sure the consular diplomatic corps there was getting an earful about this Borat guy.
You know what's curious on that in that movie is that the gentleman that's Armenian and he's actually that goes along with him and translates. He is actually speaking Polish a lot. He's saying like Yakshimash.
Yeah, Polish and Hebrew. I was like, wait, I understand. It's like I feel like I could be the translator for Borat. He's like random Polish, and then he throws Hebrew words in there. It's like totally just completely off the wall. But I want to ask you about Afghanistan because different countries you can say, oh, Turkmenistan, they're keeping an eye on you, and in Europe it's just much more open. You're sort of living the normal life. Your life here mostly is like the rest of our lives here. You're going around and doing your shopping and this, can go for a walk. But I'm guessing that just the life in Afghanistan for a diplomat is just absolutely, you're not really, I guess, able to kind of, I guess my question is, how protected are you? How removed from regular society? If you want to go shopping, how does that work? If you want to go, where are you going you want to go out of town? I mean, are you just, is it like a green zone Baghdad situation? I've talked to someone who is there, as a diplomat, and just, you're essentially in a lockdown your whole time. What's Afghanistan like?
Yeah, it really depends on your job, and if your job requires you to go outside the compound area, right, and outside that kind of bubble of protection, which you need. But you can, and it's a bunch of permission that you have to get, and you have to be going with people that can protect you. And we get training before we go, but we also have great security teams that their whole job is to keep us safe, and they do the best they can. But yeah, it's sometimes when you're out, you would always look around and wonder, right? And that goes with the job, is that when you represent your country, you do take risks. And after a while, after so many times that I had been out, I started to stop thinking about that and just kind of focused on the security steps and just did what I was instructed and trained to do, and always hoped for the best. But yeah, and you can always imagine the Afghan people who didn't have that protection.
Yeah.
Who were just sitting ducks out there and trying to live their lives and never knowing when the next bomb was going to go off. Yeah. So that also kind of provides a context for judgment, right? Is their situation was so much more vulnerable than ours.
Especially a country with just generational memory of war and catastrophe, but this never really any semblance of, I don't want to say normal life, whatever that means, but I mean, throughout history, going back, British and then Soviets and what's happening these days and until recently or until now, it's just country that, you talk about war torn. It's, the memory there is, it's almost be interesting to see what will happen there, if once it, it's inevitable, the world, Afghanistan will become a more normal place down the road, how that happens and at what cost and when, but it will happen. It'll be nice for those people that just, you think who in the last few centuries have suffered so much. They're up there on the list.
Yeah, very true.
So you come back to Poland, and I would think, Krakow, and I ask you about Krakow versus Warsaw, and I'm sure you'll be as diplomatic as ever with your answer these days in Krakow. But I was always thinking in terms of, from a diplomatic point of view, that certain countries, it's nicer to be here and it's beautiful and people like Europe and this, but it must be particularly nice to be in a country that America is really, I think America is better liked in Poland than it is in most countries in the world. Now it goes up and down, and these days, it's fashionable sometimes countries that are, we don't like America, and with obviously someone polarizing like the previous president and all these things, obviously up and down. But Poland, looking at statistically, Poland is a country that for the last, since 1989, really likes America. And I would think representing America here has got to be more fun than other places, just for that issue, on that topic alone, makes it kind of fun, I would think.
Yeah, it's interesting. President Reagan signed the proclamation for Polish American Heritage Day back in 1984. And, since that time, I think presidents have recognized the impact that immigration from our two countries have had. So it's here in southern Poland is where we have the largest numbers of immigrants to the United States. And so there is often with people a personal connection. It's either a direct blood relative or some cousins or friends. There's always someone in the States. And in the States, there's always somebody in Poland. And so that creates this really magical bond between people and this kind of bridge between Poland and the United States. So that part isn't really surprising to me. I remember we got our Solidarność t-shirts back when that whole movement was happening, and people would print them up, and all the Polish American kids would wear these shirts all over in support of solidarity at the time. And so I think for me, it's always been kind of a ingrained thing that there's this really special tie between Poland and the United States. Even if you look at the history of the United States with the heroes that everybody talks about, Pułaski and Kosciuszko, even starting from our birth as a country, Poles were involved. And so I think that's extremely important. I don't know if I'm the only Polish American Consul General. I think I'm the one whose last name gives it away, right?
Right.
But I'm sure maybe there were some others, Consuls General, that had Polish blood. But it's quite an honor for me to be here. And I was in Warsaw yesterday, wonderful city, but I was very happy to get back to my home here. And what we always say, nie ma jak w domu, right? So I was happy to get back to beautiful Krakow. Warsaw is a great city. This is the first capital. So for Poles, they often remind you that Krakow is the first capital. Lots of wonderful history. I love that it doesn't take as long to get between the two cities anymore. Back when I was a student, it was a slog on the trains.
220 on the train these days.
Yeah, just amazing. And so a lot of commerce between the two cities. What's really interesting, which you probably know, having our embassy in Warsaw is quite large. Hundreds of people work there. It's a big embassy on Piękna and Ujazdowski streets. And then over here, we have a much smaller, tinier consulate, but we do a lot of work. And I think, one of the things I'm extremely passionate about is supporting the Jccc and supporting the museum. I had the opportunity to have a little lunch with Director Slowinski at the residence the other day. So that part is really special to me, to be able to work with you and people like you on these really important causes.
I know you won't answer, but Krakow, or maybe you will. Krakow versus living in Krakow versus living in Warsaw?
Oh, there's no question. I'm very honest about it. Krakow.
Good man. I would think because it's just smaller. It's small. I think you're not living really in it. You don't feel like you're living in a big city, which is very special here.
That's right. And a lot of the architect, unfortunately, in Warsaw was destroyed by Hitler.
Of course.
A lot of it was maintained here in Krakow, so that the city just has that. A lot of things remained intact, and so that really changes.
Within 100 meters of where I'm sitting right now, there are more old buildings than all of Warsaw.
Yeah.
Right. It's just unfortunate that was the way it was. It's interesting though, but really, I think that there is something. I agree with all the things that you said about Poland and the U.S. having a special relationship, but I think it's even more than that. I think if you think how many. Obviously, America and Germany have a different history in terms of wars, but so many German Americans or Irish Americans or stuff. But if you would go to Ireland today and you would do a survey about people that have a pro-American opinion, it's not going to be like it is in Poland. In other words, Poland these days skews very pro-American. Pro-Israel as well, which I think for us is interesting, and people don't realize, in the Jewish point of view, that Europe is Europe, and in certain ways, Poland has maybe more conservative outlook geopolitically. And I don't mean from a government to government point of view. I just mean the average Pole is not as sort of critical of America as you find in a lot of Europe over the last 20, 30 years, which is to me interesting. And I you know,
And I also think that if you look at the immigration streams, Poland was still supplying a lot of our immigrants in the 80s, 90s, and where the other countries had pretty much stopped that route to the United States. And I think the newer generation of Poles that have immigrated to the United States, all the ones that I know have a home or a residence or something to come back to in Poland. They spend as much time as they can in Poland, and then they spend another part of their life in the United States. I have huge respect for people who can pull that off.
and they always have
Just
beautiful,
huge respect.
and they do, and they, you know, and these, and now it's gotten more expensive in Poland, but very often people, certainly from the Krakow region, a lot of them south of here, Nowy Targ, and in this area, you have a lot of people, Bieszczady, you know, from the south of Poland that went to America, and, you know, it could build a beautiful houses here for not that much money. So they come, you know, maybe live in America, but come back here and they have these really nice places. It's a nice connection.
Yeah, so I think the later stream of immigration, Poland was really at the top of the list on that. And I think that's played a big part of it. But there are other reasons, and I think nostalgia and just a shared system of values. There's lots of reasons. It really depends on the person.
Yeah, no, fair enough. You know, maybe just because not everybody always realizes it. You know, I think people have in their head what the ambassador does, or maybe they don't. But what maybe just quickly, what is the main job? What does the consul general do in a place like Krakow? And maybe not during Corona, because I guess you're doing the same thing, but it's much on a much smaller scale, because a lot of the sort of flying the flag of the US as
Right.
part of your job is not, you're not able to do, because there aren't as many events or almost any events until recently. But generally, what is the job of the CG in Krakow?
Well, the consul general represents the ambassador in another city in the country where the ambassador is the president's representative. So we're very fortunate that we're the only country in our Central European Bureau in the State Department that has both an embassy and a consulate. If you look at Central Europe, I'm not talking about Germany, or I'm just talking in the Central 9 countries. And that's really great because we have so many dual citizens down here in the South. We have so many connections to business and defense cooperation, and to have an actual place where people can go for support. It's really great to have consulates. I'm a huge fan of consulates. This is the first one I've ever worked in, and I'm lucky to actually lead it. I have a wonderful team. But the consulates do a lot in terms of, we have 6 provinces here in that I'm responsible for. So the 6 southern provinces, which border 4 countries. So you have Ukraine, Slovakia, the Czech Republic, and Germany are all on our borders here in the South. And we have tons of allies and friends in Poland that I would love to go back out and visit and talk about how we can cooperate better on programs that help Americans and Poles, how we can cooperate on health issues, on vulnerable groups of people. You and I have spent a lot of time talking about that. That doesn't make me always very popular, but we will continue to do that. We will continue to make sure that the human rights of everyone is a message that we get out, that is a priority for us. So that we go out, we talk to governors and mayors and business people all across our district and get an idea of what's going on. I do represent the ambassador at a lot of events that he or she can't attend, and events that are specific to Southern Poland. So I'm really busy. And even my team here, that you know all of them, I think pretty much, of Americans that are here with me, and then the several dozen Polish wonderful local people have been working for us, for the consulate, for sometimes more than 30 years. Make this job just truly a joy.
I would think it's got to be one of the, you know, everybody loves, you know, people, you know, you get to know people at the consulate over the years, and people just seem so, you know, it's such a job, a desirable job, that people really want to be the CG in Krakow, I think, or to be in Krakow generally, but be the CG in Krakow is I just think it's a great job. Seems like everybody loves it.
I'm a Polish kid from Milwaukee. This could be my mic drop. You know, if I don't go anywhere after this, it's fine. I'm fine with that. This is by far a dream job for me.
And I would think your Polish relatives, in other words, what kind of what you know, it's like, you know, Nobel Prize level local boy done good, that you come back representing the US, as a Polish American is just, right?
We're looking forward to COVID forwarded our plans. My grandfather's village is near Pilsno, so it's in the Podkarpackie region. And they have actually the equivalent to a mayor, the Sultas, in his little village. And then the mayor of Pilsno have found quite a bit of genealogy for my family, and they're holding that for me when I come out and visit. And some of my cousins still live out there. And so I'm looking forward to taking my kids, going out and seeing my family members and where my grandfather was born in Poland. So I'm looking forward to that.
I think you'll get the key to the city.
Well, we'll see about that. But really wonderful people in southeastern in Poland, just fantastic people.
Yeah, it's a beautiful part of Poland. It's a little bit wild. It's beautiful. It's a very special part of Poland. You mentioned that how that you're really a friend to our institution, and you're absolutely have been, and the consulate before it was such a warm relationship between the consulate and the Jccc, and the consulate and other Jewish institutions in town and in the region. And it seems to me it was interesting to me, like, wow, that it seems so. I was surprised. I mean, now it's sort of part of the way things are, and I'm not surprised anymore. But I remember at the beginning when I started doing what I was doing when the Jccc opened, and to see how important Jewish issues are to the consulate is interesting to me. So can you maybe talk about that a little bit, just why that's the case?
Well, one of the reasons is the high level interest from Washington coming here often and you've been with me on several of these visits. The Speaker of the House was here. We had 6 very well-known Republican senators that visited us right after the Speaker was here with a wonderful delegation. Yeah. People come here to pay their respects for the tragedies and the murders that occurred in Auschwitz and Auschwitz. One of our big jobs here is to make sure that their visits are the most informed, most prepared, and the most effective for them to really understand what happened here, so that they can take that mantra back to the United States and to their constituents and to their colleagues in Congress and in the Senate and say never again with some passion, because they have come and they've paid their respects. So I get chills thinking about that, because that is an honor for us to be able to be a part of that.
It seems like, not only the commemoration though, but it does seem like, that's sort of in the last, certainly, years that I've seen that we've been doing what we're doing here, is that there's just, an active interest in helping support Jewish life in Krakow, even when there were, have been security issues in the past. The consulate has jumped right in and been incredibly helpful with that. So it seems like it's, it just seems like it's very, the idea of Holocaust commemoration is one thing, but I guess because the Jewish Americans are such a big part of life in the United States, and as the institution representing the United States here, it also seems like that's that's a big part of it.
I have to agree. The Jewish Americans that I have met have come to Krakow to visit. Of course, they really focus on the museum and the events that happened in Auschwitz, but they're also focusing, like you are, on the future of the Jewish community in Krakow for many years to come, and the Jewish children that are being able to go to the Jccc to learn really more than just their DNA, but where they came from, where their ancestors came from. That part of their life is invaluable, and I think we're very supportive of not only making sure that we follow that mantra, never forget, but that we help with the Jewish community that is alive today and living in Krakow with any challenges they might have, and also celebrate their successes. So that's what we're trying to do.
No, we appreciate it. It's been incredibly helpful for us. So, whether with you or with your predecessors, that there's, this understanding, whether it's bringing, these delegations, having them come here if time possible, like with the Speaker Pelosi, or for we to just be able to have some contact with them, with the senators recently, and and in the past many others. It's been so important for us that having this, at this, highest level really the U.S. Policymaking government, that they see that there is a Jewish community here in Krakow and stuff. I can't tell you how important that has been, and the sort of the after effects of that, of having people like that come to our center and see our center and stuff, how that's helped us get the message out in the United States. We always say that if we don't change a lot of people's perceptions about Jewish Poland, especially among Jews, which is that it's a cemetery. If we don't change those perceptions, then our community won't have a future. And the consulate, in many ways, but certainly by making sure that at least giving the opportunity to so many of these American politicians to come here and to learn about this has been game changing for us.
I appreciate it, and it's our honor to be a part of it.
And I know that we've talked to your office a little bit about this new initiative that we have. First of all, thank you for being involved with our bicycle ride with Ride for the Living, which is just about our favorite thing that we do, and whether virtually or we got to do it in person. Even if this year doesn't work out, I think that you're here until next summer.
I am, so I'm not going to be able to get out of it.
So we will absolutely, you and I will put on our spandex and ride next to one another at a certain point.
Listen, I have to tell you exactly what I did last time, and the pierogi is so good here. I have to really watch and get out. But I've been walking every day, and really close to my 60 miles already. So for all of you out there that maybe won't be able to ride, but get your steps in and get your miles in, and it's really good.
I'm doing my nephew's bar mitzvah project in New York. Is this global challenge? He did the ride actually in 2019. He did it when he was the youngest. He was 11, and he did the whole. He's very sporty little kid. So he's going to get his friends and do that. And now we started this Holocaust Survivor Day, which we've spoken to your office a little bit about, which we're very proud of, and hopefully will really catch on. This idea of beyond focusing on the Holocaust and commemorating the victims, this idea of saying, wait a minute, these Holocaust survivors are role models for us, and we owe them so much. They're the transmitters of history, and let's take a day and just celebrate them.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
So thank you. We're happy to. We're looking forward to working with the consulate about that, about all these issues, and let's just get things reopened soon. I think Poland is looking good. I saw with the tents last week in the Rynek of people getting shots. Seems like things are getting in gear.
That's right. I mean, people I think often forget that we hadn't had a pandemic since 1918, like this with the Spanish flu, and that the learning curve is really steep. And I think with the vaccines now, it's really providing people with a hope that we can kind of come back to normalcy soon, and we can get out and see each other face to face, twarz in twarz, like we say in Polish, right? It's really important. And as a diplomat, not being able to speak to people face to face has been really difficult. I have to say that you can teach an old dog new tricks. I mean, I have been able to navigate these different platforms, from Zoom, to government Zoom, to you name it, I'm on it. Teams and WebEx and everything, and get that message out that we're here to support people with their projects, which are important, especially yours, and people like you that are in Krakow in southern Poland that are doing good things. So we're out there trying to support them.
And no, we appreciate that. And is your feeling that, what about travel? What do you, because you guys always know what's going on before the rest of us a little bit. Are you getting the feeling that Americans are starting to come to Poland, or is that because I think they just announced, the US said that one of them, I get so confused. The US said that EU citizens can come, or the EU said Americans can come?
All right, the EU is reviewing their program, and we're reviewing ours. Right now, President Biden's proclamation is intact, and you would still need a national exemption for that. And so travel to the United States still a problem.
Limited. But is there a feeling, or do you have any timetable for when that might change? The summer?
We don't. I know that the president gets regular briefings from the CDC, and he's really watching that, following. He's in constant conversation, he and his team, with the leaders of Europe on how we can get that that travel relationship back on track. It's going to take some time, but man, we've seen a huge amount of progress in a very short time. So I think I would love to see some real changes in by the summer, but we'll just have to go. We stand ready at the consulate to help people. Whether it's, I have to say that our Polish dual citizens here, or people that are here, really good about getting their passports renewed. So they keep us very busy. If a child is born in Poland, but they have a right for US citizenship, we take care of that documentation for them so that they have what we call a child record of birth abroad, which functions like a birth certificate.
Right.
We do that, and we also provide here at the consulate financial questions for people who receive Social Security and other issues, their benefits package. They can talk to people here at our consulate, so that's quite helpful, especially for our octogenarians and nonagenarians. They really appreciate that service.
I'm sure. Yeah. Now I think the EU recently has said that Americans can come at a certain point. So now it's up to the American side.
That's right. Well, we'll keep waiting. You'll be the first to know if the curtain comes down. I will give you a call.
You know, for me personally, I can go as a citizen, and my wife, because she's married to me. But for the rest, so hopefully we'll start to see some visitors coming to us. You know, a big part of what we do obviously is hosting all these visitors, and it's been very quiet and very empty for us here. But hopefully that'll change.
And our business people in Krakow have suffered tremendously across the world, but in Krakow, you know, a city of 800,000 who last year or before COVID started had 14 million visitors. To see how they've been affected and how resilient they are. So I'm sure that the Polish community in southern Poland, the business community here, really wants to get visitors back, and we would agree with that.
Yeah, when Warsaw these days doesn't feel as empty as Krakow does, just because of the tourists that are missing here. It's such a big part of, as you say.
Exactly.
Patrick, I'm just mindful of our time, and I'm just going to finish up. I have to ask you a very important question at the end.
Okay.
Your three favorite films, Patrick.
Oh, that's easy. So Papillon.
Oh.
I love Dustin Hoffman in that, and Steve McQueen. And then The Godfather, only the first one, the classic. And then a Russian film, Burnt by the Sun. In 1994, it's one of the Russian classics, Burnt by the Sun, Academy Award-winning film, a great movie. I
will check it out. Godfather, there. Oh, it's a good thing we didn't start. You know, the reason that I don't start with this question, because somebody says Godfather to me, the whole interview goes off, and we only start doing lines about the Godfather. So.
No, I started with Papillon.
Papillon's
purpose.
Papillon. Patrick, thank you so much. Thank you for being such a friend of the Jcc and for all that we do, and such a supporter. And thank you for joining me.
And I'm going to go with the latkes.
Oh, you're on Latka. Team Latka. You're on Team Latka versus Hamantash. Oh, excuse me.
I mean, which Polish person doesn't like fried potatoes?
I'm also firmly on Team Latka. I'm with you. Nobody does Hamantash. I think I have to give poor Hamantash, because I'm on Latka, and I argued on Team Latka during our debate, and I always ask questions, and nobody ever says Hamantash. Only 2 people I think have said Hamantash. So it almost feels like I'm just like, fuel to the fire against Hamantash. But
I have a question. Can you eat Hamantashen only on Purim, or can you have it on?
No, it's fine.
It's fine on anyone. Maybe I was thinking maybe
of course
the holiday was stopping Hamantashen.
Right, with all the 10 million regulations we have about when you can do every little thing. I think you can eat. You're pretty good eating Hamantash during the year. And Krakow bakeries, by the way, around the corner from us, Vanilla. There's very good bakery. 1 minute from the JC, they have great Hamantash.
Oh, fantastic. All right, my friend. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Patrick. Be well. I hope to see you in person soon.
Take care, my friend. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody.